gotta send out that that link.
This one, is it the same one as the other one?
I don't know.
Just look at AUG.
AUG. I don't even know if you emailed me.
Testing. Video pip top right. Video pip bottom left. Video pip bottom right. Full video. What? This is the video pip for the top left screen. Video pip for the top right scene. Video pip for the bottom left screen. Video pip for the bottom right screen.
Debrief on that call.
TV. This is exciting. Is this the thing we bought?
Yep.
Oh, am I on camera?
Yeah. Well, you're not.
I'm not being recorded.
Let's fill up the front.
I can take
Their shirts.
Yeah.
There you go. Everyone else dressed like this?
It's good design.
That's pretty good.
It's a TMC design.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, I'm very happy that we can continue the second in our design series. And the last one was a month or so ago with Ben Louise, as you remember, in the graphic design. Today we're very fortunate to have Alex here, Alex Chang, who's your friend, and I don't have much to say about him. I'll let him introduce himself. Suffice it to say, he resides in Silicon something. In Silicon Beach, Silicon Valley, and Silicon, so Seattle as well. Silicon something, whatever it is. And he works at Pseudo Amazon. I didn't ask him this morning how Jeff Bezos is doing. Still bad on the employees. But anyway, works at on EX and UX, user experience, and so forth. Today, I think he has a very, very packed talk and with 110 slides. So you'll be here for about 3 hours. Minus 2. So he's going to really try to give us a great overview of this, the role of design. So
yep.
It's all yours.
Thank you. So yeah, I was telling, it was actually, to be honest, it was actually hard for me to craft this deck. I spent the last few weeks pulling together different resources from my library of design. And there's a folder, I can't see it, and I checked the folder this morning. The size of that folder is 25 gigabytes. So to try to curate all the content from all that resource into a deck was not easy. But I won't try. We won't spend 3 hours. I will try to fly through a lot of the the slides in this deck. But also, I prefer not to be doing the monologue for the next 45, 50 minutes. So I like to make it interactive. So feel free to interject, challenge. Some of these are my perspective. Some of these are the industry's perspective. Some of these are more factual. But feel free to ask any questions. I won't mind at all. Okay?
Awesome.
Right.
Can everyone hear in the back?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So this is kind of the structure of today's talk. A little bit about me, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the definition of design, the value of design. So definition of design is more about the what, right? And the value of design is more about the why, and the process of design is more about the how. And then we're going to leave some time for Q&A. Each of these sections, definition, value, and process, I feel like we can spend an hour on, but we're just going to kind of skim the surface this morning. But we can talk more about it. And I told Nora and David that at the end of the talk, well, after this talk, I will provide some kind of resources for you if you want to follow some of these areas more in depth. So a little bit about me. So I grew up here. Grew up in Orange County. Almost went to UC Irvine, but didn't. That's a long story. We won't get into that. I ended up going here for undergrad, University of Washington, and also graduate school. I did my study in undergrad in math, so nothing to do with design. And then I did do my grad study in the field of design. In the last 20 years, kind of bounced around Orange County to Austin, and then now back in Seattle, Washington. And I'm currently working as a UX designer at Amazon. This is after working for a management consulting company for 10 years. This is actually my 4th or 5th month in Amazon, and it's a beast, right? It's a huge area, and we have people coming joining Amazon by the droves every week. And also, for the last few years, I also have been an adjunct professor for the School of Design at University of Washington for the Interaction Design program, and also the Masters of Human-Computer Interaction Design program. So that's me.
So is the human-computer interaction, can you explain that a little bit?
So human-computer interaction, so the term HCI, that's been around for a while, and that has to do, the emphasis there is between human and computers, right? Because it's a lot to do with software, some to do with hardware. But that now, that is the academic version of the term. But in the field, oftentimes people work as user experience designers, experience strategists, interaction designers. That's what it translates to in the field.
Because the reason I bring it up, in some of our, on the venture side,
Yeah.
we facilitate by technology human building interaction
Human building interaction.
through computer, through build space.
Very nice.
Using technology.
Yeah. So HCI it's quite inclusive and encompasses many areas, right? So the latest thing with Internet of Things, which now brings together more closely the hardware and software, HCI is a huge component of that. So the definition of design. So when we talk about design, what do y'all think about when you hear the word design?
Usability.
Usability, that's not bad.
Art,
Art, okay. What else?
the life cycle of the product.
Wow, okay. You guys are much more educated in the design space.
Top classified.
Because most people, when they think about design, they think about this, right? They think about graphic design and identity design. So this is actually, I hear a little bit, this is all the work by Massimo Bonelli, who passed away, I think last year. And he's well known for designing the New York subway map, and as well as the identity of American Airlines, Bloomingdale's, Knoll. So most of the times when we think about design, we think about this level of design, right? Or similar, this is the famous Paul Rand. He did many things. His book design, he was known for all these very seminal logos, right? The UPS, FedEx, he's the one who came up with the arrow within the FedEx logo, the IBM, the Westinghouse, and the Next Computer existed like for a brief period of time. So that's all we think about design. Or we think about design like this, objects, right? Very appealing objects or something like this. This is a Leica camera, partner with the fashion company Hermes. Sorry, pardon my French. And this camera costs $50,000. And people actually bought it. You can see, it came with white gloves because they want you to handle the camera. So this is kind of level design that people kind of are used to, right, or exposed. And this is also, USPS commemorating the history of industrial design a few years ago. And these are all the objects that have become somewhat of an iconic design in the industrial design field. And sometimes owning one of these is kind of even a status symbol. So that's what we're kind of used to Java design. But I would say this is also design. So this is a stairway at a Pike Place Market with a tourist place in Seattle. And I took this picture. We're showing some friends around. I took this. That's my son's shoes right there because I was holding him while trying to take a picture at the same time. And this is the door at the bottom of the stairway. So you can see. Get closer. So when you get closer, there's a little inscription on this door. Because if you go back, this looks like a door, but it's actually not a door. Everything about it tells you that it's a door. It's a hinges on the right and the left. It's actually not a door. So people somebody had to write this so that the door is on the left. That's the door. That's an elevator. It's hard for me to do a presentation without including a screenshot of an elevator. I don't know, this is like a conspiracy on how elevator buttons work, right? Are designed. Why are there two 30th floor buttons? And you never know what order they go in. Is it left to right, up and down? And why are there two open door buttons? This is also design, right? And this is even worse. Yeah, I can't tell which one's a button and which one's a label. This is a train ticket machine in Austin. I took a screenshot. I took a picture of this. This is the instructions, and nobody ever reads. And it's 5 simple steps, right? It's actually not that simple. And then when you come to the interface, this is what you get. And you know, you have these arrows coming down, but actually the arrows don't really mean anything. And if you think that these are buttons, there's actually not buttons. They're just there. When I first tried to buy a ticket, it took me a while to figure out how to actually buy a ticket.
So press any button to continue.
Yeah,
So it shouldn't be that tough.
Right, that's what you that's what you would think, right? But actually, there's any buttons on the screen, not any buttons anywhere else. So the point here is everything is designed. Not everything is designed well, but everything is designed. Nothing comes into being without somebody designing it, right? Somebody planned it, somebody created it. So everything is designed, right? Nothing is not designed. But beyond just the giving form to something, beyond just providing the aesthetic values, design at the core is really about a solution to a problem. It's solving a problem. Design is about problem solving. Whether that be the business problem or whether that be a user problem, it's really solving a problem. And also, design is a change agent. How you change people's behavior. Today, if you consider Uber, for example, you change how people take rides, right? And it's a catalyst and also an agent for change. Now I'll show you a couple of videos. this bin, I think. I don't refinish it. So I don't know if you saw the beginning scene. There was a scene that sets up the problem, right? The problem is that there's a bunch of trash around the bin. People don't put the trash into the bin. So they came up with this thing called the deepest bin, and they just added some sound effect. And I don't know if you caught it, but like people like wondering what this thing is. It became a delightful experience. And they started picking up trash around the bin to put it in there just so they can test it out. That's solving a problem with design. And so here's another one that's slightly more serious.
Hi, I'm Doug Dietz. I'm the principal designer for Global Design at GE Healthcare, and I'm the lead designer for Adventure Series. The Adventure Series is really an activity that we've been working on to see what can we do around our diagnostic imaging equipment to make it friendlier for both the family and for young patients. We have large diagnostic imaging equipment at GE Healthcare. They're huge, and some of them make noises. Adventure Series is really looking at it really from the child's perspective, looking at where their anxiety points are and coming up with some really nice solutions that help those, whether those are visually taking over the room in a theme, like a jungle theme or a pirate adventure or something, as well as music that leads them into the room and coloring books. So we wanted to have elements that addressed all the anxiety points.
My name's Liz Auer. Who is this? Well, we're here today for a CT scan of Dump's spinous. Really chronic congestion and coughing. So we're going to have a look, see what's going on in there. And the pirate room was pretty cool. The room was painted completely like a pirate setup, including the floor. The floor was like the dock with the water on the sides, and animals and things on the walls. And the CT scanner itself was like the wheel of the pirate ship. It's for a child, it can be kind of scary and see things that make noise and look very institutional. And this is you're not even really thinking about the fact that you're doing a procedure. Very, very welcoming, very whimsical and fun.
So a little bit. I don't know how many of you have done a CT scan. So CT scan is this gigantic machine, and you have to be absolutely still. So think about little kids. They have a hard time being still as it is. And then they have to go through this scary machine. And when you go in there, then when the machine turns, it makes this gigantic noise. And it's super scary. And they have a hard time keeping kids still, right, as still as possible. So a lot of times they had to give them some sedatives to just knock them out. But GE came up with this way of redesigning the experience of CT scan, right? They did this theme, this particular case is a pirate theme. And you put the child, before they even go in, they get a pirate hat, and then when you walk in, the floor is painted as all the steps you can step on, like rocks in the ocean, and you board this boat, which is the CT scan. And when you go in, even inside this CT scan, they have painted inside according to the theme of the pirates. And so the child here is distracted by this thing, and therefore coming out with this really good experience. And this actually improved quite a bit, and a lot of hospitals are starting to adopt this for the children with CT scan. That's solving a complex problem, and with relatively low cost, right? If you think about it, you don't have to develop an entire CT scan just for the kids. But this enables the kids to go in there comfortable. So the role of the designer, or you can say the role of design, is really to bring together the needs of people. So in the previous video, the needs of the kids is being able to go through the CT scan without much anxiety. With business technology to create something that's desirable, viable, this is what we aim to do, right? To create the kind of experience that's useful, that's desirable, that's usable, valuable, findable. There's a diagram somebody created. It's called the honeycomb of the UX design. Accessible and credible. And when you're talking about the discipline of the experience design, it's actually encompassing many, many disciplines. We won't go through these, but let me zoom in quickly. Here you can see that it touches on industrial design, it touches on architecture, it touches on interaction design, sound design, motion design, communication design, interface design. All these are design, right? And that's what our experience in everyday life is made of. It's designed by all these different disciplines. So a little history. It's hard to talk about the history of user experience design because it's relatively a nascent field still. It's maybe 5 years, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, you don't hear this term, interaction design or user experience design that much. So there's not much history to trace back. But so today, we mainly want to talk about from an industrial design perspective, which is kind of the predecessor of interaction design and user experience design. So it all started with Industrial Revolution. So before the Industrial Revolution, what happened is you have these bespoke creation of craftsmen creating products for individuals. But with the emergence of industrial evolution, you have the capability, the manufacturing techniques and capacity to create products for a massive amount of people, right? And that gave rise to the industrial design. And I want to highlight some of the people. So this guy is Walter Dorenteek, and he is known to have worked with Boeing, many of their airplanes. So this is the Boeing's Stratter Cruiser in the early days. And in the early days, they traveled differently than we do today. This is the Tiger Lounge. I don't know if you've seen this. This is how they travel. And Mr. T actually worked a lot with Boeing to design the interior experience of the air travel. He's also known as a product industrial designer, as a speaker and camera design. But also, he's actually the first one. David and I would talk about service design. He's actually one of the first designers that brought about the practice of service design. So he designed the first service station, gas service station, Texas gas station. So he brought together architects, engineers, product designers, fashion designers to design this experience. So he designed everything from how the uniform of the attendant would be like, to how they spoke, the language, the terminology they would speak to the people that come in to get gas. And also, he even studied how women come to get gas. And back then, women had a slightly different role, and they have certain needs and certain habits. So that when they come to the gas station to get gas, it's quite different than when a man to come to the gas station to get gas. So he was designing the experience down to that detail. So he's kind of the pioneer of service design. Raymond Loewy, he was a car designer. He's actually the first person who brought forward the concept of design consultancy, meaning that you can hire a designer not to design any particular area, but you can hire a designer to do anything. He can design a car, which he did. He designed the classic Studebaker car we can see here. He designed a train. He designed logos. He designed a pencil sharpener on the lower left, the vending machine for Coca-Cola, a toaster, and shelves. So there's this concept of you can hire a designer to design all the different things in various disciplines. He's the one who kind of brought forth that. Henry Dreyfuss, he wrote a famous book, and I would encourage you to read it. It's called Designing for People. These are the objects that he designed, right? The famous SX75 Polaroid camera, the vacuum cleaner, iron, the telephone right there, and that thermostat. He was the first person to kind of bring forth the kind of human-centered design. So today we very much are talking about human-centered design. He is the one kind of popularized the concept of designing for people, understanding people, how people sit, how people stand, and dive deep into the research of people to inform your design. And you can see he designed that, and you can see that the NASA kind of took a page out of Henry Dreyfuss' design book, right? Because they actually work pretty similarly, right? You dial the analog dial, but here you also dial the surface, right? Okay, I think a lot of you know Charles and Ray Eames. Charles was not a licensed architect. He never got licensed. And Ray was a painter. But you know what? They did a lot of things. Well, of course, you know, they designed a lot of really iconic furniture, right? Which at the time it was meant for the general public. They're trying to build this. They're trying to create furniture that's affordable for people. But today, ironically, they're the most expensive furniture out there. I don't have too many expensive things in my house. We have this, and that's the most expensive piece of furniture in the whole house. Probably more than all the other furniture added together. And John Ray came up. They were not just furniture designers. And by the way, they were the ones who brought forth the bending of plywood. Right? They invented this technology of how to bend the plywood. Today, you look at the furniture around, bending plywood is everywhere. But actually, at the time, it was very difficult to do. They were the ones who pioneered that technology. And so they were not just furniture designers, but they also were filmmakers. So this is a Power of 10 video to give, it's actually educational video, right? To show people how to view things in context, from the high level perspective down to very detailed perspective. So zooming out to the universe, down to the cell level. They also create exhibits. So IBM hired them to do the World Fair. I forgot what year. That was the World Fair thing right there. They also did a presentation at kind of a U.S. Moscow relationship. But back then it was, you know, at the tail end of the Cold War. So they actually facilitated an exhibition that really won over the Russians. Exhibits I won't go into detail. And then they also design houses. This is Eames House in Pasadena. So last year, my wife and we took a trip there. I have a little bit of bonus from my last company, and we went to do a tour inside. You can actually go tour the outside for just $10. But go inside, it's pretty expensive. And we did the tour inside. It was a guided tour, and it was really good. I mean, it was quite a rich experience just to hear the history of the design of the Eames and how they live. And they actually preserve most of. This is how. This is why Tech and why they're still alive, and they preserve everything still the same today. You actually, when you go through the tour, you actually can't touch anything. And I was walking backwards, and I knocked over something. I don't remember what I knocked over. But yeah, you got to be careful how you walk in there. Their design principle is make the best for the most for the least. That was their slogan. Right? They had a design studio. That was their goal. And even designing those furniture, that was their goal, is to make the best furniture for the most people for the least amount of money. And this is Charles drew this as part of his kind of design process. Identifying the interests of the business, which is the office studio, the design studio. Then the interests of the clients, a lot of times that's the people, and the concerns of society, and then you figure out what the overlapping interests, that's what you design for. Dieter Rams. So he's still alive. He's about 80 years old. His design has been really popularized in the last few years due to Apple. But he designed for Braun, and these are all the iconic. That's a radio. That's the electric shaver. That's a turntable. From juicer to cameras, video cameras, to shelves and speakers and chairs. You can see why Apple has taken. This is how Apple has kind of imitated the design, right? On the left is Dieter Rams' design. On the right is the Apple design. So you see the Apple screen. So there's the Apple screen there. That is mimicking the speaker, the shape of the speaker that Dieter Rams created. The iMac, look at iMac, it's very similar to the TV that he created. The iPad, it's very similar to the radio that Dieter Rams created. Right? So you can see the inspiration that came from this man. And he has this thing called the 10 design principle. The good design is innovative. Good design is makes a product understandable. It's unintrusive. It's honest, long-lasting. These are the principle that's been circulating around the design community today. But so a lot of people quote the 10 principles of Dieter Rams, but I actually like this particular quote by him. That says, good designers must always be avant-garde, always one step ahead of times. They should and must question everything generally thought to be obvious. They must have an intuition for people's changing attitudes, for the reality in which they live, for their dreams, their desires, their worries, their needs and living habits. They must also be able to assess realistically the opportunities and bounds of technology. So what he's saying is, you need to understand the people, and you need to know how to. Now, once you understand the needs of the people and how the behaviors of people, now you need to know how to bring together technology and business together to fulfill the needs of the people. The value of design. So, any questions so far on the history? So that's not inclusive history, by the way. That was just a snapshot of history. The value of design. So I've taken some of the slides from this designer, Nathan Strzok, who's also a chair of one of the design schools in the Bay Area. When we talk about value, there are different ways that people calculate value. Right? This is some formula, the socioeconomic economy that calculates what is a lifetime customer value. But with Nathan and his team at the school that he's in, they kind of, from the research, they kind of narrowed down to 4 different areas of value. Meaning, identity, emotion, and price and function. But most of the time, businesses focus on price and function, because that's the quantitative aspect of value. Right? Whereas meaning, identity, emotion, they are more invisible, and they are not as quantifiable. Right? They're more qualitative. And all these different components of the value, they don't exist independent of each other. They exist in relation to each other, right? They exist in the context of relationship. So you don't have when you produce a product or service, when you create a product or service, you have to establish a relationship with the people you're serving, with the people that you're producing the product for, right? So there's a relationship, and relationship can only exist in the context of experience. That's why experience is so important. And again, like I mentioned, price and function, which most businesses focus on, it's quantitative, but it's the hard part. What's interesting is that while people mostly focus on price and function, these 3 things, the qualitative components of value, actually way outweighs the worth of price and function. So Instagram was purchased in 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I can't remember, for 1.5 billion by Facebook, right? But do you know how much it was worth the day before the acquisition? Any guess? How much was it worth? 500 billion. Huh?
500 million?
No. Lower.
South of 100.
100?
South
Lower.
of 100 million.
So-
Isn't that 50 million?
It's about $86 million, right? But the $86 million is value at the function value and the financial value, right? What Facebook paid 1.1 billion is not really for these things. It's for these things. It's for the relationship that they have created with all the millions of users that are using Instagram, right? That is what 100. When you take 1.1 billion minus 86, you still got quite a 1 point some billion.
Yeah, 1 billion.
So $1 billion, that's how much the relationship, the experience is worth. Right? Yeah. Okay, Apple. You know, I try not to put too much Apple stuff here because it's becoming cliche, so this is only 2 slides on Apple. So this is the trend of the Apple stock, and you see that you see the gradual increase. You know, Steve Jobs came back in '97, right? You see this point right here? That's the, can you guess what that is? A little spike? iPod came forth. But iPod became pretty popular, but it didn't make that huge of a difference. And something happened here.
First iPhone.
No. First iPhone happens here, 07. Something happened here. You want to guess? iTunes was created. So iPod did not take off really until iTunes was created. Now you give away, you provided a way for people to download music easily and cheaply done to your device. Now all of a sudden people make sense. Now I know why I need to have an iPod. And that's when they started picking up. And obviously, when they realized, wait a minute, people are starting carrying this music, MP3 player. We can do something about that, right? Why should people carry so many things in their wallet? When they have a phone, eventually the emergence of cell phone these days. So they have this idea of bringing all these functions into a phone, and that's the creation of iPhone in 07, and the rest is history. It's funny, when iPhone first, I'm not in the stock market, but when iPhone first came out, I told my wife, I was like, well, we should think about maybe buying some Apple stock. And that was at $70 at the time. But we didn't have much experience in buying stock. And my wife never followed through with what I suggested. And so we didn't. And then later on, they went up to $700 a stock, right? We're still talking about it. In 1995, 2 designers, husband and wife, in Ojai, California, they saw that there was no easy way for people to learn web design. So they decided to set out to create a course to teach people web design. And over the years, they have created not just courses. Back then there was DVDs, and I still own a few of their DVDs. They started with DVD, and then they went to online training, and they touched a lot of things related to web design, into business, to productivity, and that's lynda.com, which was acquired by LinkedIn for $1.5 billion last year. It's amazing, right? For a tutorial company to make $1.5 billion. So, but you realize that LinkedIn didn't buy them for the courses that they have. They bought them for the relationship that they established with the people that are subscribed to LinkedIn.com. And if you look at this is from John Maida's Design and Tech talk this year. If you look at the number of companies that have been acquiring design companies and design firms, it's just in the last few years, it's amazing, right? Everybody and anybody is buying up designers and design firms. And this is also showing, Accenture. So you have banks, you have consulting firms, you have technology companies, all have been busy acquiring design companies because they realize how much they need to build in the discipline of design into the company.
So we're not off the mark here.
Right. And these are the companies that we consider as leading companies and how they value design, right? Whether their design is taking this in their strategic business, Apple, Google, Facebook, or design is part of the way they innovate, or design is just part of their support. These are the leading companies today, how they value design. And look at the acquisitions, right? And the successful startups that got acquired. Prior to 2005, you only hear these big acquisitions every now and then, right? So you have YouTube being the biggest one in 2006. But then something happened here. In 2009, Mint was acquired by Intuit, right? And after that, look at how many companies have been acquired that are design-led companies. It's amazing. I mean, here it's Instagram for 1.0 billion. I think Lynda.com is somewhere here. Oh, it's not there. SlideShare. So that's a huge contrast. But here's the thing. This is not, when we talk about design, it's not just how much money he can make you, but it's also design matters because if you are not paying attention to design, you could become obsolete and irrelevant. And so, you look at this: Gmail versus Hotmail. The right side. So I'm going to show you a few contrasts. So the left side is what's happening today. The right side is what's companies or services that become somewhat obsolete, or in some cases have gone out of business altogether. Right. So Gmail versus Hotmail. How many still have a Hotmail account? How many have a Gmail account? Okay, so Google versus Yahoo, right? Yahoo just got acquired by Verizon for not very much money, and but Google is doing well. And then Airbnb versus Craigslist, and this particular is more related to their vacation rental in Craigslist, right? So I don't know how many people are still using Craigslist vacation rental, but Airbnb is definitely the gold standard, right? There's something about if you have your logo in purple, you don't have much of a chance to make it. Quora versus actually how people ask questions online. Facebook versus MySpace, Friendster, Zynga. iPhone, Nokia is gone. BlackBerry is barely hanging in there. Windows Phone is on its way out, right? So that is the value of design. It's not. So the question is, will you matter? Will your company continue to matter 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, or will they cease to exist because you can't compete on the level of experience? Process. So how do we design? If you Google design thinking process or design process, oftentimes you see this type of diagram. Right? You start with empathizing, defining, ideating, prototyping, and test. So they all follow the same kind of pattern. Right? Discovery, interpretation, ideation, experimentation, evolution, inspiration, ideation, implementation. This is called the double diamond design thinking. You first started from a problem, then you diverge to explore many solutions, as many solutions as possible. Then you try to come back, refine, and you start developing solutions. You go back out again, and you come back to a final solution. Right? This is a more developed diagram on what are all different parts of double diamond and what the different phases of the project and different activities and methodology of the project could be applied in this. Here's another one. Research, focus, generate ideas, make decisions, prototyping, collaborating. This is one I created. You start with the 4 quadrant, you start with research, then you go into prototype, and you go to design and ideate, and it's not a linear process. It's a circular process, right? You always are continuing to research more, to prototype more, to refine your product. And when you first start a design, it's like that. A lot of ambiguity, a lot of uncertainty, but then at some point, as you are going through this process, clarity comes in, right? And that's what you want to get into is here, that final solution. Again, this is to simplify phases. And I want to just highlight one thing. So people like, it's easy to sell people on the value of design, and they also want to take on design. But they often don't like to invest in the first part of design, which is discovery, understanding, and research. Because research costs money. Research takes time. To understand people, you saw the Eames, when they design all these ergonomic chairs and whatnot. Back then, they spent lots of time. They have brought people in, they measure them, they test the chairs. They spent tremendous amount of time to understand how people sat, how people stood up, and they also try to figure out from different spectrum. You have the tall people, you have short people, you have people that have back problems. They spend lots of time doing the research. And a lot of companies don't like to do that. They see that, well, we'll just hire designers. They come up with something magical, right? But without understanding people's needs, you can never come up with good design, no matter what kind of designers you have. So part of the process, you can develop, and I know some of your entities are in the space of service design. So here, the example is, when you dive deep into the research, you come away with this, right? You're understanding the customer journey. So this is a journey map for the Rail Europe travel aid company. This is how you book a ticket for the trains in Europe, right? And then you try to understand what the customer's experience is like. This is a experience journey map for a museum, children's museum in San Francisco, understanding how the highs and lows of the experience.
So, can you go back one?
Yep.
Is that for the people or for the business?
For the business.
Lisa,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Garland.
And garlic.
So you have to understand, right? The reason for creating the journey map, it's not so much for having something you just have, right? The reason that you would do this, number one, is for you to dive deeper into the different phases of the experience of your customers. Secondly, you come to an agreement. Everybody in your company will agree that, okay, this is what customers go through. Then when you start making business decisions, you won't argue with each other. You can reference back and say, well, look, here is the pain points they're experiencing. Here is the opportunity. There's also a place to identify the experience, the opportunities where you should work on. Sometimes you're like, okay, we have this journey, this experience. Where do we start? Where do we begin? Well, here is where you identify and prioritize the opportunities. This one is similar. It's how somebody goes about and purchase broadband service. So we are moving toward the end of the talk here. So yeah, I told you I would go through the 110 slides pretty quickly. How much time do I have? Oh, yeah. Pretty much time. Okay, I want to leave you with 5 points, I think, as a formula for a good design. But before I do that, do you have any questions? Yeah.
Have you explored the experience of booking a hotel and the design around that?
Yeah, like, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised that if you look at this is booking the train travel. It's a similar, you can do the same thing with booking a hotel, right? I'm sure that the company like Hipmunk, Hotel.com, I wouldn't be surprised that their internal teams have done something similar to try to understand the journey of the customers. So absolutely, that's like one of the great places to have this kind of methodology applied to that. Yeah.
So for something like this,
Yeah.
what size of a team will have worked on this, and what are we looking at in terms of hours?
Great question.
Hours spent.
That's a common question in all companies. Well, it depends. Sometimes you can have a design team of one, and but it's difficult because that person needs to take on multiple roles, right? Has to develop the research, to synthesize the research, develop the understanding to communicate to the rest of the company, and then help facilitate the design of a solution. So you could do it if you have the right person. But usually a team of, well, it depends on how big your organization is also, right? Because that would determine the need. But you can have a team of 3 or 4 to work on this. I mean, Amazon, I don't know how many hundreds of design teams are there in Amazon, but that's because of the size. So it really depends on organization size. But you could have a team of 1 if you get the right person. Yeah.
Which books did you read to gain a deeper understanding of design?
Oh, I will provide a list
Okay.
for you.
I have a feeling it's not gonna be short.
No. That's why I hesitate to provide a list, because I don't know how many times people actually follow through going through the list. But I'll give you a list anyway. So here is what I consider the formula. I took a page out of my, somebody who I consider as my mentor. She gave a talk a couple of years ago. She's worked with Apple, Method, IDEO, and anyway, so I added some of my own thoughts in here. But the first thing is you need to establish design leadership. Apple is great at this. Steve Jobs has been quoted saying that next to me, when he was alive, next to me, Johnny Ives is the most powerful person, the one that has the most authority in the company. So he basically made this designer, whom he met in '97, was hiding in a cave in Apple, doing his own things. He had made him the second most powerful person in the company. So all decisions came from Steve Jobs and Johnny Ives. So basically, he established the leadership at Apple to be a designer. Right? So that's why Apple today is a design-led company. So design needs to have a seat at the table of leadership. So here, so going to talk about Apple, these are all the leaders in the creative space. And you can think about this.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
So that was a famous ad ran by Apple, right? About leadership, about thinking different, different campaign. So not everybody needs to be a designer in the sense of academically trained designer, but everyone can be a design thinker. So you do want to have design thinkers at your leadership table to drive the organization forward. The second thing is to have a clear vision. So vision and leadership kind of go together, right? Here is the mission statement for Nest. We at Nest, we invent things. We take unloved products in your home to make simple, beautiful, thoughtful things. We take what is familiar and look at it in a new light. Our team focuses on making technology as simple, fresh, and helpful. And the vision should encompass empathy, right? Your vision needs to have people at the core. And then the vision also needs to be forward-looking. The reason Apple is successful is that they were not looking short-term. They were looking long-term. They were willing to invest in technology. The things that are coming out today, they were developing it many years ago, right? 5, 7 years ago. And being able to articulate that vision all the way down to all the fiber of the organization is critical. Foster a design culture. And I think this is what you guys are doing here, having the design talks. But I think more than just having exposure to design, it's also giving your people the ability to design, giving them freedom to design, even designing how you run a meeting, right? We have status meetings, and some of those meetings just terrible. They're just boring, right? What about giving your people a way to design the meeting differently? So empowering the people to design. And if you think about it, if you look at this, all these companies are doing is establishing a design culture. IBM, it's been around forever. It's just invested $100 million to build up their design culture. They have a branch in Austin. They're desperately hiring designers left and right. And they have even published this whole design section of IBM. They're trying to change the image of IBM. And all these companies, Airbnb, and they all are trying to establish that culture within the company. And then invest in design, going to the extra mile. I added this, because good design takes time. And it actually, sometimes you could lose money for the amount of time that you take. But you need to be willing to spend the time and money to create good design. You know, Apple is known, again, not to spend too much time at Apple. They care so much how the internal design looks like inside the phone, which nobody ever sees. But they care to paint inside the fences, right? Let me show you, and this is how they're. Let me show you an example. A few years ago, my wife was at a mall in Austin, and they had a grand opening at Apple Store, and so they were giving away free T-shirts. So my wife got me one while she was there, and I was just so pleasantly surprised the care they took in packaging a free T-shirt. It's free. You open up the box. First of all, the box is nicely designed and with nice silver tape over it. And you open it, it comes up in one piece. And so the detail they put into something that's even been given away for free is amazing, right? So going the extra mile, take the time and design, knowing that design is in the details, is critical. And lastly, be human-centered. And that's what we've been talking about this whole time, right? To focus on people, be human-centered. Those are what I consider the different aspect of women. I think that's it. I have a video to show, but I think I won't show that.
Hi, I'm Kevin.
If we have time later, we can talk about that. But I want to open up for questions.
Give me thoughts on that. So there are these other companies that put so much money on good design.
Yeah.
So if you're in a somewhat similar space of functionality as far as UX goes, do you have any thoughts on just taking what they've done, since people are used to that, and then?
So yeah, so there is a question of that's a really good question. So did you guys hear the question? So there are companies that invest a lot in design. What about taking what they have done and and apply the same way to what you're doing? Well, there is, you saw earlier, Apple took a page out of Theodore Ram, right? Nest took a page out of Henry Dreyfuss. There is a way to learn from what has been done before and bring that experience into your products or services. But you have to be careful, because Samsung has tried to copy Apple for a long time, right, and has never really been able to do it successfully. I mean, they've made a lot of money doing that. So there's a difference between imitating versus innovating through repurposing what's been done before. In a sense, nothing is new today. Everything that you have, like even now, everything is a remix. There's a TED Talk called Everything's a Remix. You should look at it. And it traces back everything that we have has been somewhat designed the same way before that we learned from that. So there's a way to learn from what other people have designed and apply the similar principle to it, but not be a copycat. Does that help? Yeah.
This is really interesting. Thank you. It seems like at the center of all this is human-centered design.
Yeah.
And you're thinking about how everything you do affects the human experience of a product or a service. And I wonder, you look at the human HR function essentially is one of kind of the linchpins of that in organization, right? Where you're designing an organization around people.
Right.
It's often one of the most under-invested areas of the business. Design probably more generally also is, because you can't justify it as a cost center in relation to where you're trying to grow revenue. How do you flip that narrative? Like I know you can talk about the emotional value you create, all these things, but how, when you're in a resource scarce environment, startup, do you really make the compelling kind of push for investing in HR or investing in other kind of design-centric processes that actually, down the line make a huge difference in value?
I think it, well, first of all, I think going back to what going back those, I'll give you the famous answer from designer, it depends. But I think at first you need to start with having the value of design in the company, right? So I haven't talked about Amazon, because I'm not supposed to talk about Amazon too much. But you can look up Amazon's 12 or 13 or 15, I don't know how many, the leadership principles is listed. And actually, when you go interview with Amazon, you are grilled on the leadership principles. And there's 12 leadership principles, or 13, I can't remember how many. They're not in particular order, except for one. And that one is the first one. It's called customer obsession. And they picked the word obsession for a reason. They want to make it a strong statement. And you know what? Having been there for 4 months, I'm so surprised that whether in the organization, whether you are a developer or whether you are a product manager or you're a designer, people often, when they come to meet, they always ask what is best for the customer. It's amazing. So it's in the fabric of how they operate. So that, I think, is where you should start. Now, in terms of, well, how much I invest as a designer, that comes later. I mean, that depends on what project you're working on, right? But if people are always thinking about what is best for the people, then you automatically, the solutions you're creating is already people-centered. Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, because essentially what you get into is this question of how do you bake design, how do you approach the organization in a design thinking way so that you approach the product in a design thinking way?
Yeah.
How do you bake that question into the culture? It seems like...
Well, you all are doing...
Yeah,
this is one of the ways, right? Having exposure is one, and then asking the question is another, right? So like Amazon, they always asking the question, what is this good for the customer? You can be asking the question, how can this be designed better? Right? But it's not designing better for you, right? But designing better for the people that you're going to be serving. I think having that kind of mindset is important. So you're right. Design thinking is not just a matter of process. It's all very, very much of a mindset. And sometimes it takes time for an organization from more function and price mindset to a design mindset. So it takes time to develop that. But I think this is a good way to start. Yeah.
I have one. So I'm just curious, how do you become confident that your design is sort of going to stand the test of time? So one thing I struggle with, and especially when it comes to real estate and these projects, is to stay ahead of the design curve. If there's some inherent risk in that, and it seems like a risk we have to balance, because I mean there's certain designs that have been around for centuries and they look great, but then you look at, you can look at modern homes that were built in the 90s, and they don't look good today. Yeah. So how can you be confident that what you're doing is going to look good in 10 years?
It's hard. You don't know. So, the EAM stuff, the mid-century stuff, that's very valuable today in people's homes. People love the mid-century stuff, right? At the time when they designed it, they designed something, they wanted to design something that's timeless, right? Actually, so I can go back to it, one of the design principles. I think somebody design principle.
Long lasting.
Long lasting. So when you pay attention to how you create a product, the shelf that they create, that Diagram created, right? The attention to the details, how the shelving is made, and how it is, even from the visual perspective, from the aesthetic perspective, from a function perspective. They took great care in crafting this. They know this thing's gonna last, from material-wise, it's gonna last a long time. From function-wise, it's gonna meet the needs for a long time. And that's how you create something that's timeless. So it takes the care and the time into that. And you don't know, but but they have the confidence that once they create something with this level of quality, it's gonna last.
So when you're designing something from the get-go, which would you prioritize? Would you design more for the human interaction or more for the business itself? Like,
You should always design for the people first.
so ultimately, everything we're building, we have to
Yeah.
build out for the people
Right.
and figure out how to make the business work around that.
Exactly. Well, you have to balance priority, right? You have business needs, right? You can say, well, everybody's going into the food business, so let's ditch our hospitality service and go into food business. You have to balance both the business priorities with the people's needs.
It's just a balancing act.
Right. It is a balancing act, but you're always looking at people first. You see what I'm saying? And when you're looking at, and I don't think it's mutually exclusive, even though it's a balance. Because once you identify, and I think Bill was asking earlier, if you understand the journey mapping, the journey map of the experience of booking a hotel, of booking a rental space, then you identify opportunities. And you may adjust your business priority based on that, right? So there could be some shifting of your business priorities based on your understanding of people. Basically, everything we are designing should be informed by understanding of people.
Carlin, do you have any questions since you're, it's funny, I saw this morning the map, Carlin's done a map.
Very thorough stuff.
Yeah, but it's in your thought process of making that, do you have any questions that could help as you go through?
I guess when we're making that kind of flow chart or map, what are a few things to keep in mind if you are doing it from the customer's perspective? What do you lay down first?
The first and foremost, the map should not be, first and foremost, the map should not be your assumption of, the map should not be your assumption of how the journey ends. It has to be based on actual insights and data from the people. So that means you need to go out there and talk to the people. You need to engage them, whether in the form of in-person interviews, surveys. Surveys is not a good way, by the way, survey is a terrible way to do user research. But talking to them. Go out and talk to people. Survey is an easy way. I remember I mentioned earlier, good design takes time. Don't do the shortcut. Go the extra mile. Survey is a shortcut, right? Go and talk to the customers. Talk to 10 customers, 20 customers, 50 customers if you can afford it. And that needs to be based on the actual insights from all the interactions with customers. Secondly, you want to understand what they're thinking, what they're doing, and what they're feeling. Thinking, doing, and feeling. Right? And also to identify different stages of the process and mapping that thinking, doing, and feeling to those stages. Does that help?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I have tons more on the experience journey map. I'll be happy to share with you.
Do you have some resources that you like to go to that kind of benchmark certain things that you like? So if we're designing a website, for example, do you have somewhere that you go to kind of see if what
it's
you're
called your
designing
users. Test it with your users.
If we don't have so many users?
Well, you don't have to test with existing customers. So one of the resources you can, it's not that expensive, it's called usertesting.com. They can recruit people for you to test out your website for you. And they can identify all the pain points. And the people that, even if you're developing new products, they usually, the people that they recruit are under some kind of NDA, so they can disclose your product anyway. So that's one area. But the best tool is validating with actual people that you're going to be, that are going to be actually using your product.
Right.
You know, it's interesting, and Evan's comment made me think of, within our group, we're designing technology, we're designing processes, we're designing real estate.
Yep.
These are all different and different design needs that we have, I guess. And one thing he made me realize is the longevity of a real estate product, and when you talked about it being useful, sort of like, everything else can be iterative, right? I mean, these other processes, you can go to your users and you can change if they didn't like one. The Apple phone you showed, they change it every year.
That's
right. The one you showed is almost not recognizable to the one that's out now.
Yeah.
But when you're designing something like real estate, should you be more conservative, or is there a different mindset or a different practice, because you've got one shot at it in a way, and you can't iterate it so often.
You can't iterate so often, but you could validate it, right? Because so some of the things, when you're not designing technology, like you said, iPhone, you know, if it doesn't get it right this year, maybe you can get it right next year. But actually, every design has a consequence, right? So even with Apple, whatever they don't build in, they realize there is an implication there, right? And the implication on the sales, and you know, Apple is very scrutinized as a public company, so if they fall short of their sales target, their stockholders are not happy. But to answer your question, you want to do deliberate design, meaning something that you cannot change, and something that's so a lot of things in the medical field, right, which are mission critical things. It's very complex. Then you want to make sure that you build in a lot of iteration before you even release it into the wild, right? You can do different kinds of prototyping, iterations, validating with the users, whether it's internal users or external users. And when you get to the point where you're confident that, okay, we have enough data, both qualitatively and quantitatively, that this will stand, then that's when you go. But you want to have some very deliberate design all the way through before you get it.
Kind of following that question I have, because I love this.
Yeah.
I like it for everything that we do, both from the customer experience, but also internally, as I think Ed was alluded to, but his was more specific. But like my consideration is, if we are going to be permeated in the fiber of our being, we should have our processes, even internally, so our infrastructure,
absolutely
thought through of every, like, what I do, how does that affect Mike's job?
Yeah.
And is there a way that I can really put this without becoming like unrealistic?
Right.
But in the realm of being realistic, mapping out all the things we do. I think Lisa's leading a charge to start to put these things together. But do you have any thoughts on, if you I know the talk's based around externally facing, you absolutely need that, but also internally facing.
Absolutely. This applies also for internal processes as well. One thing I have to point out is it's extremely hard to change behavior. That's what we're trying. Remember earlier we talked about design is a change agent, is a catalyst for change. But at the same time, we human beings are habitual people, and once we settle the way of how we work, how we live, we kind of like to stick with it. So it takes time to influence a change. And then today there's a whole field on behavioral change, right? How to design for change. But having this kind of view at least gives you the lay the groundwork, right? Because if you don't have this, you don't even know how your processes impact your own people. You don't know what the pain points are. You don't know where the opportunities are. But at least when you have this, and it doesn't have to be exactly this, but just mapping out the experience of the people in your organization, you at least can have the baseline, right? You have the base understanding of where everybody's at and how it's in identified areas. Then you can figure out, okay, where do we strategically focus on changing? Right. You don't want to change too many things at once because change is difficult. But when change is delightful, it makes it easier. You saw the trash bin. I was going to show you. Maybe I'll show you right now.
Hi, I'm Kevin Richardson. I'm the winner of Volkswagen Spun Theory Award. My idea was the speed camera lottery. Could we get people to pay the speed limit for fun? I really believe that fun can change human behavior for the better, and I was really thrilled to see that my idea, which started as a scribble submitted into this competition, might even become reality. The speed camera lottery would do two things. One, it would photograph speeders, give them a citation, and that money goes in a pot. But if you're obeying the law, your picture will also get snapped. You'll be entered into a lottery and win some of that money from those speeders.
Ska vi köra alltid lag? Man tvekar på att vinna. Det är en bra positiv grej det där. Kör laget och tjäna deg, det är perfekt.
So somebody actually won $25,000 from that. So speeding is it's a very difficult behavior to influence, but there are ways they're trying to influence that through a more delightful fashion. Right? So I would say pick one thing from the understanding of the journey. Focus on it.
Dang, we can have an expense report lottery.
Okay, well, very inspiring and thought-provoking. I thought actually maybe this need not be the only time. You can come back again and maybe give us a little talk on the experience journeying or whatever, journey mapping or whatever it is. So we'll just stay in touch.
Yes.
All right?
Thank
Well,
you
thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
To your question, as an architect, it's a loaded one, but I think boiled down to the essence, how do you create something that is really stylish and something that is a little bit more timeless? That is the challenge for the architect. Now, there's various building types, ranging from the museum, the cathedrals, all the way to the tent, right? There are various life cycles and so on. So that theory will not evenly apply. But really, that's what we're trying to do in our, hopefully in our buildings. That is not just the fad of the moment. Good design is always at that timeless quality. I mean, a few years out, you improve it, but you look back, you still have that timeless quality, right? That's right. It pushed the envelope, it was highly innovative, and changed the game. So hopefully that's something that we at TMC will do in whatever endeavor may be. All right. Well, thank you for your time. So you can. And thank